I'm Leonard Riggs, and this is my podcast from my head to your ears. And I'm going to talk about, I'm into the nostalgia thing again, but this time of year has some good nostalgia for me because I watch these kids going on field trips, and I think back at some of the funny field trips I took as a kid in school. I always loved this time of year at school because you got to go, first of all, it was the end of the school year, of course, but then you got to go on these field trips wherever we went that particular year. And I have some funny memories to share. So I'm going to take a break and I'll be back with my stories. Story time once again. And I'm back. I was thinking about all the times we got to go on field trips in school, mostly, well, exclusively grade school. So we didn't do that in high school other than a trip to SIU one time in our art class. But I think that's a funny story too, which I'll tell later, but later in the podcast. But going back through the years, I think my favorite and earliest memory of a field trip was my third grade field trip, because we sold candy, and it was those little turtles in the tin cans back before you really couldn't buy them at retail, but they were kind of sold by schools to raise money for trips and stuff like that. And we sold those, and of course I was so shy I did not want to sell the candy door to door, so I just kept them, and most of my family bought them. And boy, those were delicious too, by the way. They sell those retail now, but back then you could only get them in those cans, and they were so fresh and they tasted different, but they were amazing. Anyway, if you don't know what turtles are, they're the little pecan caramel clusters, and back then they came in a can. So anyway, but we had to sell that for our third grade trip, which was a trip to the St. Louis Arch and the zoo. And that was one of the most fun times I ever had on a school trip. I think it was my favorite school trip because I'll tell you, the Arch was amazing. If you've never been to St. Louis, you should visit the Arch. But back then they had first of all, they had a little theater in the bottom of the Arch, and you would go in there and they showed a movie about how they built the Arch, and that was really cool because the people that constructed that, I mean, it was really scary. I mean, the way they did it, guys were walking on the structure when it was half built and really high up, and I'm not a fan of heights, but I still remember watching that and going, wow, that was pretty dang amazing. But I love that part. And then we went up in the Arch. You take an elevator to the top. And the Arch is such an amazing structure. I mean, it looks like a good wind would knock it over, but I guess it's a sound construction job. But you get up on the top and you can look out the windows and see the Mississippi and all that, and it was really, really interesting and a lot of fun. Plus the elevator ride was just straight up, it was almost like an amusement park ride in itself. I remember a couple of the girls I was in the elevator with were screaming, which I thought was humorous. I was just enjoying it. But yeah, the top of the Arch is just crazy fun, and plus it kind of creaks a little bit when the wind, so. But that was so much fun, and to think that it's still there. And that was 1976, so that was many, many, many years ago. So we went there, and then we went to the St. Louis Zoo, which was a lot of fun. I loved the zoo. We all had little groups. We had our little groups, and we had these little cutouts of animals in our group, and it seemed like we were elephants, if I recall right. And my chaperone few of the parents went, was a lifelong friend of mine, Angie's mom, Polly. So it was kind of a added fun thing to have Polly as our chaperone because I knew her. And anyway, we rode this little train around the zoo, and oh gosh, it was just so much fun. And I think we were 10 years old, and I bought a little banner, a St. Louis Zoo banner that I hung on my wall for years and years and years after that. And that was probably my most fun memory of a school trip. Well, up until that time, because later on we would go on another one. I'll bring that up in a minute. But through the years, we would go to various places like the local Wren Lake. We had a picnic there, class picnic, and they had a cool playground there, and it was a lot of fun. I think most of the fun came from just being free and hanging out with your friends and just having a good time in the picnic food and what have you. And it was always a really fun time. And just to get out of class, it was always a blast. I'm trying to remember. I'm just kind of pulling these out of the top of my head. We went to Heron City Park, which Heron, Illinois, has a really, really nice park with a lot of really fun, not rides, but fun playground equipment, like a little circular tumble thing that you get in and you run. I don't know what you'd call that, but they had more than your average city playground, so it was a fun time. And I remember the trip the funniest thing about that, and again, we had mom chaperones, and my friend Richard's mom, Judy, was a chaperone, and I was with my group of friends, and we got to ride in the car instead of the bus, because the buses were full. We had a kind of a large class for Christopher, Illinois back then, but I remember being so shy, and this is true because a lot of people don't believe that I was ever shy, but I was extremely shy. And I remember being in this group of kids in a car, and being just so quiet that Judy was driving back through Heron after the trip was over, and she hit her brakes and said, "Where's Leonard?" Because I was so quiet, she thought she left me at Heron. I'm like, "I'm back here," you know. Judy never forgot that story. She passed away a few years ago, but she always told that story about me because nobody could believe that I was quiet. And she's like, "Listen here, this boy was so shy." So, yeah, I was that quiet. It's amazing to believe now because I don't ever shut up now. I saved it up all those years. We also went to Isaac Walton Lake one year and had a swimming party, and that was our 7th grade, I believe. And that was a lot of fun. We got to swim and have a good time. But of course, many times when I go on trips with my family, I've been known to get car sick, and we'd have to stop, or I'd have to pee in a cup or something. I was always having to stop and do something like that, throw up, pee, whatever. But I really love being by the water. I still today, it's just so relaxing to me. But this particular time, they had a nice little, what do you call it, deck or whatever, where you can sit on and watch the water. And I was looking at it and got seasick, I guess you'd call it, and threw up everywhere. So yeah, that was the highlight of my 7th grade trip. But I take that back. The St. Louis Zoo was great as a kid trip, but my 8th grade year, we got to do several things. And one of them was we got to go to a place called Augustine's in Belleville, Illinois, and it was kind of a fancy restaurant, and it had a disco floor in it. And it was so fancy that my teacher, Miss Rita Williams, hey Rita, I love you. I think she was just pretty much we had some really good teachers in our junior high. They're all my favorites, but Rita's one of those standouts. But she taught us how to properly use our forks and knives to eat at Augustine's. And so we get there, and my friend John Doherty reminded me of this story, because I actually did remember it. I just think I put it out of my mind. But we get there, and they had this amazing fried chicken. I mean, we sat down, and we were at our tables, and they bring out this big plate of fried chicken, and everybody's, listening to Miss Williams is using their forks, and this dumbass country boy grabs his chicken legs with his hands. And I was really skinny, but you stick a plate of fried chicken in front of me, and I'm going to grab it with my hands because, chicken is finger licking good. Who eats chicken with a fork? I don't even care. I don't care who I was. I would always eat chicken with my fingers. I don't know. But anyway, after the lovely dinner, which was amazing, and that fried chicken, I think I had 75 pieces of fried chicken. And by the way, that does sound good right now. I'm hungry. But, oh, I snorted on my podcast. Yes, I'm a snorter. Anyway, after the great supper, they had a little awards thing where we gave out gag awards, and I got the Incredible Hulk award, which was a little hand squeezer that measured your strength, because I was the notorious non-athlete in grade school and pretty much high school too, but it wasn't so pronounced in high school. But yeah, I'm like the absolute nerd non-athlete that ever lived. I am terrible at sports, and I think that's why I never got into them, because I was awkward and clumsy, and I don't like to do anything I'm not good at. So I didn't care for it, but I loved that award, and I kept it for years. I wished I still had it. Somehow over the course of years, it got lost, which I'm kind of a hoarder, and I never lose anything, but I ended up losing that somewhere between the moves and my houses and stuff. But after all that, we got to go in the dance room with a disco floor. Now, this was 1981, so disco was... it was pretty much over, but the dance floors still existed. So I'm glad I got to experience a dance floor, because, you just don't see those lighted. But what I mean by a dance floor, it was a lighted disco floor. It had lights in the floor and a great sound system. So we're all standing around. Nobody was getting up dancing. Nobody. We're all kind of shy about it. So what do? They play Xanadu by Olivia Newton-John and the ELO. So I'm like, I'm out there. So I start dancing, and it kind of broke the the shyness of everybody, and everybody started getting out there. So I know that was my moment, because here's Shy Leonard, but I'm going to dance to Xanadu. I still remember the music they played that year. It's funny, because I remember Xanadu and Celebration by Kool and the Gang, and Call Me by Blondie, and just the songs of that era. Rapture by Blondie. So, yeah, it's kind of a fun memory. And I wore a suit, and that is the last time I wore a suit and tie. I hate ties. I will not wear them. I told the guy that runs the funeral home, I told him, if they put a tie on me when I die, I'm going to get up and pull it off. So don't put a tie on me. But that is the last time I wore a tie. It was a navy blue suit. And I remember this punky kid sitting behind me on the way there and hitting me in the head the whole time and just aggravating me. And he's like, oh, look, it's snowing. I guess I had dry skin. I don't know. Who knows? That's an ugly story. I was like Ali Sheedy in The Breakfast Club, I guess. I had dry skin. That's an ugly part of that trip. I can't believe I'm telling that to everybody, but it's true. I had this hair back then that was kind of this bowl haircut and I had curly hair, but I would comb the curls out into the bowl, and oh my God, it was awful. It was just awful. When it was kept short, it was fine, but as it grew out, it just got out of control, and just, it looked like I had a if you know what a tribble is from Star Trek, the furry creature, it looked like I had a tribble on my head. Oh God, I was so awkward, and glasses. But anyway, I had fun. And the second trip of that year, and we'd raised money that year for our trips as well. We sold candy. I don't remember that as much. We sold candy and stuff. But we got a trip. We got that Augustine's trip. And we were all dressed up to the nines for that trip. And it was fun to see all my friends dressed up. And we got back late. And I remember sitting on the bus and sitting by my friend Craig Edwards, and we were sitting by the teachers, my teachers, I love them to this day. They're awesome, wonderful people, great role models. I mentioned Miss Williams, Mrs. Turner, Mr. Brzezinski, Carla McDonald, all these people that I dearly love, and am glad that they were a part of my mentors in my growing up. But I remember sitting there with Craig, and Craig is a trivia genius and a movie buff and a TV buff, and he knows everything. And I remember him talking to the teachers, and they were talking about the old TV shows, and he was just kind of wowing them with his knowledge of these old shows. And I was right with him there. I just wasn't talking. Me and him both share that love of television and stuff. So it was kind of cool to sit there and talk with your teachers, and meanwhile our friends are back there making out with each other. Not our friends, but our classmates. I remember they turned the lights on, and there was a couple of them making out in the back of the bus. Well, anyway, we were 8th graders. Everybody was getting their hormones, so yeah. An omen of what was to come. Anyway, the second part of that trip, and the final trip with my 8th grade class of 1981. So we're talking, 42 years ago? We got to go to Six Flags over Mid-America in St. Louis, and that was a blast. And I hung around with Terry, my friend Craig, and our friend Terry Overturf, and Rick Walker, and John Doherty, and all these guys. We kind of ran around together and had the biggest, most fun time I could ever remember with my class. I was talking about the St. Louis Zoo. That was when we were 10, but this is when we were early teenagers, 14, I think we were. So Craig, and I love you, Craig, I'm telling stories on you, was very girl crazy, very appreciative of the females at that time. Craig and his... Sorry, it just makes me laugh thinking about it. So we're riding this at the time. The Screaming Eagle was the big attraction at the Six Flags, and the line for the Screaming Eagle was incredibly long, and I think at this point it was me, Craig, and Terry Overturf, and so I think there was only two in the what do you call it, railway car, whatever you call those. So one of us had to sit with a stranger, and at this point I think it was Terry's turn to sit with a stranger, and I've got a story about that on another ride that still makes me laugh to this day too, but I digress. So we're waiting in this line, and there's this pretty blonde girl and her huge boyfriend with muscles, and she's wearing a kind of a maroon velour jumpsuit, and he's got arms bigger than my whole body, and Craig just kind of smacks her in the rear, just kind of, flirting with her, and she keeps turning around looking at me and giving me a dirty look, and I'm like, it's not me, it's not me. I'm so sorry, Craig, I'm telling this story, but it's just too funny not to. And anyway, he just keeps doing that, and finally the boyfriend turns around and threatens me. Like, stop messing with my girlfriend. I'm like, it's not me. And I look like Harry Potter or Napoleon Dynamite before puberty. So I'm like, damn it, Craig. You get me in trouble again. But I love that story. So we get now, I guess that's sexual harassment, but hell, back in 1981, we're just being horny teenagers. But yeah, it just makes me laugh. So we get on the Screaming Eagle, and I think I rode that dang thing twice. I loved the Screaming Eagle. It was so much fun. It was like the most fun roller coaster. But the other ride was, I believe it was called the Jet Scream, and it did a loop-to-loop. And we got on that. I think we rode that earlier in the day. And it was my turn to sit with the stranger. So Craig and Terry rode together, and then I sat with this lady who basically was just like scared to death of the ride. So here I am, and I put my glasses in my little pocket I had. I didn't want them to fly off my head during the ride. So I get my glasses on, and here I am, this little skinny kid, and this grown woman, we get on there, and she is like so scared. She's grabbing me. She has me by the head the whole time, and I'm being like she's got her hands wrapped around me, and she's screaming, no, I won't ever ride this ride again, no. And I'm just like, oh my God, so funny. And then so we get off that, and I'm like practically, she didn't molest me, but I was, I felt like I'd been attacked by somebody. I'm a little bit just what do you call it? A little bit messed up there. Oh God, I just yeah, I can't talk. But yeah, I still can just see that in my mind's eye. But the funny thing is, and I got to tell this about Craig because, sorry, Craig, you're going to kill me again. He breaks off from us, me and Terry, and we're walking around, and Rick Walker joins us, and maybe Jeff Farmer, I don't know, and John Doherty. So they break off from us, and Craig gets on I don't know what that was. It was a cavern ride of some kind. I don't think I took that ride, and I wished I would have, because my sisters took that when they were there, and I thought it was cool, but I didn't get to take that. It was a little boat ride that went through these caverns, and they had these little sets through it. Anyway, I guess several of our classmates were on it, and unbeknownst to us, Craig had kind of met this girl, and they flashed a light on the boat ride, and he's making out with her in the boat ride. Don't kill me, Craig. So, like by this time, you kind of separate in your groups, the jocks, the smart people, and we were the smart people, and all the jocks were riding at that time, and on the way home, they're like, way to go, Craig, he's making out with a girl. They were all proud of him. It was kind of one of Craig's shining moments in the 8th grade, and I just great memories. We had a lot of fun, and that was our little last hurrah of Christopher Elementary School in 1981, and then we moved on to high school the next year. Our high school was separate from our grade school, and it was across the other side of town. So anyway, I guess I'm going to take a break, and I'll talk about the last fun-filled trip I had, and that was actually in high school, and later in high school. So I will take a break and gather my senses and be right back after this little break. I have returned, and before I get to my final story, I was trying to remember. I really was sitting down trying to remember everywhere we went all those years, and I really can't remember everything, which is not like me. But I just think it was because they weren't extremely memorable. I don't remember where we went on like first grade, or even seemed like second grade is when we went to Wren Lake, but I'm not sure. But like I don't remember fourth, fifth, or sixth grade trips at all. I think maybe sixth grade was when we went to Heron Park, but I just don't remember. But the final field trip I took was, I want to say my sophomore year, maybe. I think we had an art class field trip where we went to SIU to look at art, the art display. And that was I love doing that. That was fun. SIU, Southern Illinois University, is way bigger than I thought it was. And I remember we were in our group and we were looking around the campus, which I wanted to go to SIU to study broadcasting. That was my dream. And I didn't get to go, but I wanted to study television, and they had a great television section, but I didn't get to go do that. So anyway, I was curious to look around for that. But we broke free of our group. I don't know, we got distracted or whatever, but I was with my friend John Doherty and Jeff Farmer and Rick Walker, and we got lost from our group. And that campus, there's probably colleges bigger than that. I know there are, but for us little country guys, that was a huge campus, and we got lost. So we're running around trying to find our group, and I just remember we were looking and looking and looking, and then all of a sudden, oh, there they were. So I snorted again. Let's count how many times I snort to this podcast. That's 2. Oh, Lord. But the fun part of that trip to me was after, because we got to go to the mall and hanging out. I discovered Spencer Gifts that year. I'd never really gone in Spencer Gifts, and I missed that store. It was a fun. If you don't know what Spencer Gifts are, it had a bunch of gag gifts in it. So we were all in there, and then I think we ate at the mall. They had a really good University Mall in Carbondale, had a great food court. They had Taco Bell and McDonald's and everything. So we ate at the food court, and it was a fun time. The last field trip I ever took, so really didn't have those in high school. But I look at these kids today going on their trips, and I thought, I hope you guys enjoy this stuff, because one day you're going to look back, and I hope they have as much fun as we did. And it was great to get away from the classroom and just hang with your friends in that atmosphere. So anyway, I'm going to wrap this up, and thank you for listening. I was really hard pressed for a subject for my podcast this time. Matter of fact, it took a little bit longer to make it. It's been kind of a rough month for me, but I wanted to have a fun podcast, and this just came to me all of a sudden, and I had to run with it. So thank you for listening. This is Leonard Riggs, and this has been From My Head to Your Ears. And stay tuned for my next podcast, which the subject is to be determined. And love you all. Take care.